Welcome, students, to a session on linkers or connectors in English grammar by Dr. Smrity Sonal, Christo Jayanti College. Now, what do you understand by linkers or connectors in English, and what are the benefits and the usage of linkers? In this PPT, we will see an extensive explanation to what are the various types of linker and why do we use it. Now, the first one, we can see why linkers, what are linkers, and what could be the uses and benefits of linker. Linkers, in very common terms, we can understand it as a word or kind of a phrase that is used to connect or join two different ideas. Now, linkers are very important because it gives a very logical meaning to a sentence or an idea when it is used correctly. But we have to be very conscious when we are using it, because in case if we use it in a wrong way or a wrong linker in any sentence, then it can completely alter the meaning of your sentence or whatever you mean to convey. Now, linkers, if used correctly, can reduce the usage of multiple number of sentences. And in one simple sentence, you can explain what you actually want to. And if used correctly, they can add or enhance the meaning of the sentence. Now, this is why these are called very logical words, or the linkers are very logical because they give a very logical progression to the idea or the sentence. Now, they can also be self-explanatory in the sense that when you use these linkers, they themselves kind of explain the meaning that they want to convey. For example, words like because, however, or moreover, furthermore, all these are linkers in addition to, in general, in particular. Whenever we use these words or phrases, they themselves convey a kind of meaning that is very clear to the listener or to the reader. When we are using these words, it makes sense to them and logically they understand what you really want to say. For example, if you use the linker firstly, it means that the sentence or the idea is going to have a meaning that is secondly, or a thirdly, or a fourthly. Similarly, when you say in addition to, this is also a linker which says that whatever you want to say, you want to also add some more meaning by saying in addition to. So, in addition to tells you that you have something prior to this, and you are also going to add something post to this. Now, looking at some of the basic forms that we can have, there are some of the forms of linker like clause plus conjunction plus clause, like it was raining, so I stayed at home. There is a clause, it was raining, and I stayed at home. Both are two different sentences joined together with a very logical conjunction or a very logical linker that is so, which justifies why or the reason for one staying at home. Now we can have conjunction plus clause. That is, although it was raining, I went for a walk. So the meaning, it was raining, can stand itself alone. I went for a walk can stand itself alone. And although is telling you the idea like why I could go for a walk even it was raining. So it gives you a kind of condition. So the moment we add although, it gives meaning to it was raining and I went for a walk, because it tells you that despite something was happening and that was not in favor of me taking up the other action, but still I somehow managed to take the other action. Now, we also have another form like a preposition plus noun plus clause, like despite the rain, I went for a walk. Similarly, and then we have sentence plus adverbial plus sentence, like we have a whole one sentence, and then you have a nevertheless, and then the other sentence. So, all these sentences, all the four examples we see reflect the idea of linkers and how, when used in a correct way, these linkers can enhance the meaning of the whole sentence that you want to convey. Now, moving on to a few very common categories of linkers that we see. The first one is the contrast linkers or contrast connectors. The second is cause and effect connectors. Third is connectors of sequence and time and conclusion. Fourth is advanced connector. Fifth, purpose connector. Sixth, example connectors or illustration connectors. Seventh is opinion connectors. The eighth one, explanatory connectors. Then we have emphasis connectors, addition connectors, comparison connectors, and clause connectors. Now, this PPT will have just the overview of all these connectors. We will try to discuss each category along with a few examples. So moving ahead with the first one, that is contrast. Now the contrast, the word itself says that one idea is placed in contrast with the second idea. So it shows that the first idea is not directly linked to the second one, because what do you think in the first idea is totally different from what you expect the result from the second idea. And so both share a kind of relationship that is contrast. And we can see some of the examples, phrases like but, however, otherwise, unlike, on the other hand, in spite of, despite, even though, although, still, yet, nevertheless, all these are contrast connector because they bring in the idea of contrast. We can understand it with some examples like, now we have two sentences here. I wanted to go swimming, and the other one is I am so tired. Now both the ideas do not go together. If a person wants to go to swimming, he is supposed to be energetic, not tired. And if he's tired, he cannot go for swimming. So both of them are contrasting ideas. But we use the linker but or the connector but to connect both the ideas. And when we connect both the ideas with this linker but, it makes sense. Similarly, we have other more examples. And now some examples like when we can see the illustration now, however, also comes up with the same idea, unlike also comes up with the same idea. And we have all these examples here. Now, moving on to the linkers for comparison, we see that we compare two objects, two ideas together, like while, whereas, but, however, on the other hand. Now, these sentences are normally used, or these phrases are normally used, these words are normally used to bring in a kind of comparison between two ideas. Now, we have the second one. The second one is cause and effect linker. And we see that there is one reason and then the other justifies the effect of that reason. So we always have a cause for an action and we also see a kind of effect out of that action. Like we can see some of the linkers like so. And then we also see because, we also see therefore. All these justify the first part of the sentence and then tell you that the second part is so directly linked. Unlike the first one, which shows a contrast, where you see the first part of the sentence is not at all connected to the second part. In fact, both of them move in opposite directions, conveying two different meanings, and then we connect it with one word. Here we see that both of them move in the same direction, conveying or indicating the same meaning. And in fact, the second sentence seemed to be a further justification of the first sentence. Like, so I wanted to go out, so I took my umbrella and went out. I like ice cream because I love having sweet food. Now, therefore, similarly, we have many other examples like that. We can see some of the illustration here. And these are a few examples like because I stayed at home because it was raining. So both the I stayed at home and it was raining make sense together when joined because one is the cause and one is the effect. So the reason of my staying at home was the rain. And so because can be used and because becomes a cause and effect relationship linker. Similarly, due to the match got cancelled due to heavy rain. So the cause was the heavy rain, and the effect was that the match got cancelled. Here are a few more examples. Now, moving on to the next one, we can see connectors of time, sequence, and conclusion. Now, as the name suggests, it talks about time, it talks about sequence, and it talks about how to conclude. Now, time can be earlier, later, before. All these tell us like when the action was taking place and and what is the relationship of this action with time. Now, the sequence will also tell you like firstly, secondly, thirdly, and when you have conclusion, how do you conclude? Using a linker. We can illustrate with some more examples like we can see here some of those linkers of sequence, conclusion, and time are later, after. So all these tell you that there has been some event prior, and so later something is happening. Now, before tells you that there has to be something that is after this. So it tells you a time and brings in a logical connection and relation between other time zones. Then, so there has to be something done before. Only after then you do something else. So it shows a relationship. Next. So it means that there has to be something prior to next you're talking about, and then you add on next. Soon, finally, and all these tell you the time, like when this event or thing is happening. Lastly, in conclusion, all these are the linkers of concluding conclusion, the concluding linkers.